Hej meine vänner, hvordan har du det idag? This is going to be a VR. It's umfundise, also known as table. I think I finally figured out how to pronounce that, but I definitely figured out what it means, and I think it's a very apt title. He did a video today on existentialism. He's reading a book by Kierkegaard, whom I have not read. He's on my list of things to read in the very near future, as well as some of the other people you mentioned. And I have a very limited understanding, if you could even call it that, of existentialism. I've read about it, but I haven't really read any of the people that wrote about it necessarily. But he was pondering the thought, the basic existentialist question, I think, if you could narrow it down, narrow something so broad down to a single question, it would be, what comes first, existence or essence? Existentialist says existence before essence. Like I said, I don't understand enough about it to really speak about that, but I feel like I'm probably on the opposite side of that coin. But I think it is a very unusual coin, I'll put it that way. So I'm not really going to argue or think about that, but he used two examples that started me thinking about something else. With regards to existentialism. And those were, he was trying to formulate the idea of how a thing comes before its existence, how its essence is there before its existence, or vice versa. And he used like the plans for a house. The house is there, it exists, an idea, and possibility, but it doesn't exist physically until it's built. The other thing was a spoon, before the metal is forged or cast or whatever you want to, however it's built. So I'm not sure exactly which line of thinking that takes, but I started thinking about that as it relates to the human part of that equation, and I think it's vastly different. For a house, even after it's built, you can see the house, it exists, but what is it really other than two masses of air, outside and inside, separated by some building materials, glass, windows, doors, roof, etc. It's not until you really utilize it that it becomes what it can become. The house becomes a home, so to speak. But it is a house whether or not we're using it or not. So I don't know if that speaks to its essence or its existence. I think that it speaks to its existence. It's there, but it's not. The essence of that house isn't how we use it. What it can become. The same thing with a spoon. If a spoon lays in your utensil drawer, it's a spoon, but it doesn't become its potential until someone picks it up and starts eating Cheerios or whatever with it. But with humans, it doesn't seem to be the same to me. Maybe that's just the difference between things and beings. A house or a spoon is not a being. But humans, like a house or a spoon, can become much more than they are, depending on how they're used, how they use themselves. I was thinking about also along the lines of the closer something gets to humanity, the more potential and the more it matters. It's like dirt. Dirt is dirt, whether you're using it for planting or whether it's just sitting there. It basically is. If you took a handful of dirt, put it in a rocket ship, and sent it out to the great beyond, very little would change on Earth. Very little. Microscopically, gravitational pull would change, but that's about it. The closer you climb up the food chain to that, I was thinking, for example, pets or animals, like maybe a snake or a turtle. They're a wild animal. Not much would change if they did or didn't exist. It would in relation to the food chain, and that's about it. Even if you take them as a pet, there's no real evidence or appearance of them loving or caring about us or showing any sort of emotion or attachment to us. Move further up the food chain, maybe to a bird. They display some intelligence. They display some affection. But if you open up the window, they're going to fly away almost every time. You move up to like a dog, that's completely different. They definitely show emotion and compassion and lots of human emotions. And if we lose them, it affects us much more so than if we lose a handful of dirt or a turtle. You could argue for the turtle. Then you get to humanity. And and I left out part of that. If you change the essence of those things along the way, dirt, you can make it mud, you can make it more or less coarse. You can't change it much, but with that change, very little happens. Same thing with the snake or a turtle, bird, more so with a dog. You can affect them, you can affect how they react. They'll be more aggressive or kinder. If they get injured, it changes you, it changes them, it changes how you interact with each other. Then humanity. You change your essence. If you become something more than you already are, something different, it can greatly alter. I would argue the world. I'm not a cruel person, but if I were cruel to my children, definitely is going to alter them and maybe generations. Think about if Joseph Stalin had not have been a cruel person, how history may have changed. If Timothy McVeigh had not been a vindictive person, how many lives would have changed? So what we are and what we can become has a great impact on those around us and those around them for generations to come. And in some of the more extreme cases, world history. I'm not quite sure how this relates to existentialism. But it was born out of thinking about what you were talking about. I'm a Christian. I believe God made me. And Scripture tells me that He knew me before I was knit together in my mother's womb. I'm not sure how that fills in the existence versus essence argument. Something to think about. And I also know that the existentialists struggle a lot with the concept of free will. I happen to believe that we do have free will. There are things that affect us. So I'm not as absolutist as the existentialists are on if anything affects a decision, then you don't truly have free will. I don't necessarily agree with that. And they even go so far as to say our history affects the choices that we make significantly, and that this concept called the other can affect the choices that we make. You can think about that as a peeping Tom, someone that's looking from the outside in. You feel them looking at you. You feel what they're seeing. It makes you self-conscious about what you're doing. And that can affect free will according to existentialists. interesting subject nonetheless. I look forward to reading Kierkegaard and quite a few others. I've read, he's not necessarily an existentialist, but he's considered like the literary father of existentialists. I've read a bunch of Dostoevsky. And I enjoy his, the way he dives into the absurdity of life and things like that. So I think I would enjoy reading more. Anyway, I hope this wasn't too far off the track. Till next time, you guys enjoy your pipe. Ignore the hype.